fellow readers. Today I'm going to be talking about a book, These Violent Delights. I'm just going to say right away, get this out of the way, that this is These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. Hope I said his name right. I'm not completely sure. As opposed to These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Why they decided to release two books around the same time with the same name, I don't know. I will actually be reading the other These Violent Delights as well, because I was also drawn to that book. But this one came in first. Actually, I'm on hold for both at the library. This one came in first, so I have to wait until the other one is available to me. But yeah, there's two books, same name. I'm going to read them both. I'll probably try to review them both so that you can get an idea of what they're both about. This is about kind of a codependent, messed up relationship, to put it mildly. So the book really begins with our main character, Paul, and you know right away that Paul could probably use some help. Paul is dealing with the loss of his father. I can't remember. I think it was through suicide, but he's dealing with the loss of his father, and on top of that, really trying to hold things together for his mother. His mother has been kind of enwrapped in her own depressive state and hasn't been functioning well on a day-to-day basis. So Paul's been trying to hold her together, make sure that she is, surviving. But he himself could also really use some help and therapy. On top of that, Paul's really alone. He's kind of an oddball. He likes more intellectual things and sciencey things, so he will like capture butterflies and other bugs and pin them and explore them, in a science way, not like a serial killer way. It's weird. Anyway, yeah, so he's just kind of a loner. He's a little bit odd. He doesn't see other people as like his equals, so they're not necessarily worth investing his time in. He just doesn't bother. They're not worth his time. He'd rather do what he wants to do. But on top of that, he also just doesn't feel accepted or that other people are interested in getting to know him or be his friend. So it's kind of a twisty, double-edged sword. Like, he hears people talking about him and he knows that they don't see him as normal. And he himself doesn't feel normal. So it's weird. I mean, you know right away this is a character that could probably benefit from a little mental health assistance. But the story does take place in the past. I'm trying to remember when exactly it was. Was it the 70s? But it is in the past. It's not set today. So it wasn't really a thing that, people were talking about. And I think there are some things about Paul that he realizes himself that also, because of the time period, he can't share. So he's, the odd duck that everybody says is odd, and it just makes him feel even more odd and unaccepted, which is just the perfect storm for having other issues occur. So here we have Paul in this emotional state. There's terrible things that have happened in his life. He feels unaccepted. He feels unloved. He feels like nobody wants to know him. But then he ends up meeting a boy named Julian in school. And Julian is different. He is more vibrant and outgoing. He's from a very wealthy family, so he's a bit entitled. But on top of all that, he's also very smart. I think when Paul meets him, he's studying like chess, like game moves. So, reading about classic matches and whatnot. And seeing this intelligent side of Julian kind of sparks something in Paul. And he's kind of like, oh, this this is it. This is the guy that I can communicate with. He is someone who's on my level. And they very quickly do spark up this friendship that very quickly spins into like this codependent relationship. And the relationship isn't always the healthiest. It does develop into love, and they have that kind of physical relationship with one another. But on top of that, because of Paul's mental state, he is always in this constant doubt of Julian, because Julian is someone that has more in his life. You know, he's from a wealthy family. And even though there is part of him that understands that that life isn't easy for Julian, and that Julian has actually been kind of under the thumb of his father and what his father wants him to do, at the same time, because of his upbringing, it causes Paul to doubt Julian all the time, like constantly. He constantly thinks that Julian doesn't really need him by his side or want him. And so he's also like constantly needling Julian to tell him how wanted he is. And it causes this huge strain between the two of them, because that's a difficult, messed up relationship to have. And it does turn physical in other ways too, where Paul will lash out rather violently at Julian, and Julian just kind of takes it because it's what Paul needs. And it's just this whole like maelstrom of tension and emotions between the two of them. Like you kind of want to root for them, but at the same time, you're kind of like, I don't know, you guys maybe need to not be in this. I mean, really, I'm thinking mental health services would seriously help this situation. But yeah, it just spirals. It's very engaging, very enthralling, but not in a positive way. It's so twisty that you want to keep reading it. You want to see what's going to happen, but you're also afraid the whole time about what's going to happen and how this is going to play out, because it is so dark and you know it's not a happy situation. But it was very good. I'm not going to obviously spoil the ending, but I will say like it was just very good on a very character-driven narrative. It was just an interesting, fascinating world that you definitely wouldn't want to live in, but just spending this time getting the story is enjoyable. Not in a happy way, but in a way that it's an experience, and it was just an engaging story. Oh, harkening back. I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh man. Oh man. So I definitely do think that this is worth a read. I cannot wait to compare it to the other These Violent Delights. I think that this did have a different title. I think it was My Violent Delights. That for whatever reason, I think they decided to change it. Maybe that title seemed too, I don't know, single character focused. I'm not sure, but I think that they did change that. And so now it ends up conflicting with the other book. And like I said, I think they were both released around the same time. So it was just weird. I kind of feel lucky that I'm one of the people who I want to read them both, because I read so diversely that, yeah, I was drawn to both. I'm like, well, that also seems good, so I'll just read this one. And I'm pretty sure I heard of the other These Violent Delights first, but then in my, like, looking up the book, I discovered this one, and I was like, hey, that sounds interesting. I'll read that one. I think if you're a fan of, like, dark academia, you would probably like These Violent Delights, just because it has, like, that whole psychological aspect. It's not as... it's not really dark academia, though. Like, it's not really... There's bits that are set in school, but it's not, like, that heavy school focus. But I definitely think that it would be more akin to that genre. So if you enjoyed that, you might enjoy this one. You know, there's just that whole character-driven, dark, twisty vibe that goes with this one. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it because you can't get too into it without spoiling anything, but just seeing their relationship develop and also just twist with doubt and darkness, it's fascinating. And it's stuff that you want to stop the whole time. Like, you're like, no, 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 no. But you can't, you know, you can't stop the events of the book. The book is the book. But you wish you could. Yeah, and I think that's what shows when it's a good book, when it sticks with you after you're done reading it, like in a very in-depth, I don't know if that's the right word, but a very like visceral way stays with you. It's not just, you know, they're gone. I've read a lot of books that are kind of like there and then they're gone. I might remember, you know, what happens in them, but they don't affect me in the same way. And I think that this book truly like sticks with you, and it, yeah, it gets into your soul. So that's it for this video. If you want to check out the book, look for it, These Violent Delights. But just remember that there are 2 of them, so you want to make sure to look for the right version. Until next time, bye.